It is a clear, bright day in the state of New Hanover. The Van der Linde gang ride through the heartlands on their way back to camp after pulling off a daring robbery. They need to lay low from the local lawmen, but also the Pinkertons. As they ride full force across the plains, they spot in the distance, sitting on a rock, a man with a huge frame as tall as the sky and of pale skin, almost like an angel. But in fact, this is no angel, but a harbinger of doom. As he opens his mouth, they hear, "Whatever in creation exists without my knowledge, exists without my consent." He speaks like a preacher, but he is no such. Dutch is enamored by his speech and introduces himself. The stranger's name is Judge Holden. For this video, I'm doing a crossover with two of the best pieces of Western media, being Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy and Red Dead Redemption 2 by Rockstar Games. Judge Holden would bring a dark, looming cloud over the world of Red Dead Redemption, which would rain blood and death onto the lands. The closest character to Judge Holden would have to be the mysterious stranger, who brought a plague onto Armadillo and is possibly the devil himself. This is because of Judge Holden's extraordinary power and almost supernatural skills, being able to completely crush people's bones, outstanding stamina, and stealth for his size, being able to appear and disappear like a ghost, despite being a giant. However, physical skills are not his only ability. He's extraordinarily smart and knowledgeable, being able to speak multiple languages, and has the strategic tactical prowess of historic generals. With him joining the Van der Linde gang, he would instantly get into Dutch's ear and push Hosea, Arthur, and John aside, making Dutch more irrational, ruthless, and make each mission be a massacre. Everyone in the gang would become dispensable, making the camp a very quiet and not social area, as we see it in the first chapters. The judge would sit in the corner of the camp, watching attentively, or even dancing maniacally. But then as the sanity of everyone would descend as we go on further through the game, he would take advantage of people, just like in Blood Meridian. Just like in the book, he might appear as an ally at first, but one who exploits the gang's vulnerabilities and fears. He could convince gang members to commit increasingly cruel acts under the pretense of their survival or power. His relationship with Dutch in particular could be a fascinating exploration. Dutch's pseudo-intellectual idealism meeting Holden's pure nihilistic intellect. Judge Holden wouldn't appear in every mission, but in certain ones, which would bring a certain change to those missions, which would cause more chaos and blood to be spilled. For example, in one of the first missions where Arthur fights Tommy, the judge would interfere during their fight and challenge Tommy. Instead of Arthur just giving him some brain damage, the judge would crush his skull with his hands, tossing him aside, shocking the residents of Valentine. From there, he would start preaching and then walk away without anyone trying to stop him. This would be a shock to everyone in the gang, but Dutch would still let him stay with the gang. Mike would gain a strong affinity for him very quickly, having him turn into one of his puppets, making him do his bidding. Arthur's morality would become increasingly more interesting, with Judge Holden joining the gang, particularly when Arthur clashes with Judge Holden's philosophical nihilism. Holden could push Arthur into morally compromising positions in high honor missions, which would have Arthur struggling even more than he already did in the actual story. This would turn Arthur into an amusing opposition to Judge Holden, who does all sorts of despicable things and tests people to their limit. Through this game, we would see Arthur going through all sorts of scenarios just to save the people he cares for. In the end, Arthur's death would possibly be even more sad and brutal than it already was in chapter 6, with Arthur facing a power way beyond his control. The finale would be similar with the Pinkertons surrounding the Van der Linde gang with an even larger force than in the actual story. Judge Holden would definitely relish in the chaos of killing the lawmen coming from all around, but in the end, it would be him and Arthur left on the edge of a cliff, with Arthur not being able to do anything. Arthur would try, but Judge Holden's supernatural power would overcome him, and in the end, he'd be left bleeding out, watching the sunrise. Now that I've looked over how the story of Red Dead Redemption 2 would differ drastically because of the inclusion of the judge, how would he compare to other major villains in the game? The strange man is an all-knowing person that is almost otherworldly, and being able to survive gunshots, making people throughout the years think that he could be either death because of him calling himself an accountant, or Cain because of him being immortal. The mystery around the strange man and Judge Holden are very similar, as the audience do not know much about their past and where they come from, but all they do know is that they are very deadly and intellectual. The judge, however, possesses a greater supernatural strength from what we've heard of him in Blood Meridian, a brutality that not even the strange man could live up to. Therefore, when comparing the two, the judge would come out victorious. However, if we saw more of the stranger, then he could be a fierce rival to the judge, or maybe even be one and the same person, as they both represent death and could possibly be the devil in different forms. We're all familiar with Micah Bell and his villainous ways throughout the story, and his petty, vile, and malicious actions, which caused the gang to become less honorable slowly throughout the story. Micah's actions are very in tone with what we could see in the Blood Meridian. However, the judge is someone that goes the extra mile, especially when he scalps and takes slaves after massacres, which even Micah would find a bit much, I believe. However, if Micah would be around the Glanton gang, I feel like he would fall in line and fit right in. Therefore, as Micah is just a human, I think the judge would use him. However, as villains, they both have tremendous effects, despite the judge being on a completely different level of savagery, not even one that Micah, a villain everyone hates, could match in his wildest dreams or nightmares. Despite Agent Milton having only a few minutes of screen time in Red Dead Redemption 2, we the player remember him as the law-bringing mastermind that almost brought down the Van der Linde gang in his lifetime, but wasn't able to, including being extremely knowledgeable and having the law on his side. Agent Milton wouldn't have a single chance of taking on the judge and his supernatural skills. He is also extremely knowledgeable about the law and can cite it as if he's a lawyer by practice. Therefore, if he would have to face Milton, he would prove to be a tough competition. Blood Meridian is an amazing piece of work, written by Cormac McCarthy, which I suggest you read, especially if you found the character of Judge Holden very interesting and how he is described in the book. The Western is my favorite genre, so it was a joy to do this crossover between my favorite Western piece of literature and Western video game. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, comment down below what you'd like to see me do next. Thank you, and have a great rest of your day.